Good afternoon, everybody. That was our welcome to the francophone authors in the issue. Since this is the first time that we have French-speaking authors in Hostos Review, Revista Hostosiana. Thank you, everybody, for being here. That was Felina Bakker from Haiti, from Haiti. I would like to, of course, thank the authors who are present here today. I'd like to thank everybody in the audience, everybody who is joining to learn about this dialogue between the Spanish-speaking and the French-speaking Caribbean that we have put together. Of course, my first thanks and heartfelt thanks go to the stellar co-editors of this issue. I will introduce them in a moment, but I want to make sure that I acknowledge their incredible work. Without them, this issue would be absolutely impossible. And to say that they've gone the extra mile to put together this beautiful work is really an understatement. Voy a estar hablando inglés, como ven, como lengua franca en este evento que tiene inglés, español, francés. Voy a presentar a los coeditores, a las escritoras, escritores en inglés con traducciones en español y en francés en el chat. So I will say this in English. This is a trilingual event. I will use English as the lingua franca that is common to most of our audience and our authors. We come together quite often in this language, but we will offer translations of the biographies, translation of the texts, and some of the comments during the roundtable discussion in the chat. So please keep your chats open so that you can read the translations, you can understand everything that's being said. Again, this is, I'm using English as a lingua franca. So I will begin with just sharing the issue, right? We have it published now. We have the digital publication online. It's on issue.com, and you can see it on your screens now. Yes, and it's an issue that you can browse. You can turn the pages and it will look like this. This is our title, right? De las condiciones negras, un diálogo entre el Caribe francófono y el hispano. I will spare you of my French, but Jean, if you want to jump in, or you can read later. And the translation in English is Black Conditions, a French-Spanish Caribbean Dialogue. This is issue 17, year 17 of Hostos Review, Revista Hostosiana, which is an international journal of literature and culture that tries to create these bridges between authors and editors across, and scholars and students also across the Americas. We decided to focus on this issue and offer some reflections on how we use the terms to refer to Blackness, to the Black experience in the Caribbean, both in English and in Spanish. I think one of us is helping post some of the information that I'm about to share regarding the issue, regarding the content of the issue. We present this to you aware that the ways of expressing and naming the Black condition, or Black conditions in plural, as the title indicates, in the Antilles, and the insular Caribbean today, are uncontainable. They're very complex, they're multiple, and we offer this compilation as a possible contribution to a dialogue. And it's certainly not final, it's certainly partial. So I propose the co-editors to meditate, to think about which authors might be able to contribute something of the many who could contribute, and that would make sense to bring together to discuss issues of Blackness, coloniality, and racism in the Caribbean, and the Hispanic and the French-speaking Caribbean. And so these, as I mentioned, these really exceptional Caribbeanists, John Jonassaint, Ray Andújar, Reynolds Andújar, they responded enthusiastically, and they responded to this challenge with incredible work of research, selection, translation of almost all unpublished, previously unpublished texts that really led us to discuss and to study more of the histories traced through this fiction, through these non-fictional texts. Also, some texts really question naming, how we name things, how we name an experience. And we have all kinds of genres. We have poetry, memoir. They compiled all of these texts and genres in this issue. So I hope that this, our hope is that this combination of genres and of languages will contribute something new. And now, as we read them integrated in the issue, we will be able to see new points of view, new sites of access to explore the central themes of the issue. You will see that some of the text delve into the colonial past of the islands on the routes from Africa to the Caribbean. Some delve into the process of slavery, the slavery systems, and also the trail that they have left behind. Others walk through the city of the Caribbean, of the contemporary Caribbean. So it's really a journey that we're on when we read the issue. What else could I say about the issue very briefly? We have worked with the intention of overcoming language barriers, obviously, right? We're having, as I mentioned, French in the journal for the first time in 17 years, for the first time in the history of the journal. And we have drawn from Spanish and French for the original text, and as both our main languages in the Caribbean islands. And also we're offering the francophone texts in English translation. My thanks go out to the translators here present. We will have a chance to speak with them about their work. And so we offered English as a translation of the francophone texts, assuming a bilingual audience, a bilingual readership of the journal. We have published before in English and Spanish, both languages, without translation, assuming such an audience. And we're doing the same thing here with the Spanish offered without translations, but the French, since it's a new language for us, offered in translation. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our co-editors so that they can tell us a little bit more about their journey. I hope that some of my words have been offered in the chat. I'm not able to see it. But hopefully you have some translation of my introduction to the issue. Yes, I can see it now. It is in the chat. So we'll be referring you to our audience to the chat for further translation. So welcome if you're joining now. Welcome to this wonderful event, bringing together these really first-rate authors and wonderful, wonderful co-editors. Let me begin with introducing Jean Jonassaint. He is a professor of French and Francophone studies at Syracuse University. He's also a member of scientific or editorial boards of different journals, including Continents, Manuscrits, or Continent, Manuscrits, Interfrancophonie, Journal of Haitian Studies, and El Ptolomeo, a postcolonial studies journal. His recent publications include Des Romans de Tradition Haitienne, excuse my French, literally, sur un récit tragique, topo poétique sur Franc-Étienne, Nationalism, Multilingualism, and Literature, The Challenge of Caribbean Studies, le cinéma de Semben, apologize, I lost my page, sorry. Semben Ousmane, un double contre ethnographie, jeunesse et impact d'une traduction anglaise de Christophe de Césaire, for the Troyots, and afterward to the English translation of Tidif Boulet sur Histoire Haïti. In addition to his current research on the contribution of Haitians to the emergence of modern Congo, a very first result of which has been published as Des traces littéraires et haïtiennes au Congo, an interview with Elizabeth Moudimbe Boyer. He is working, among other things, to complete a genetic edition in a single volume of Des Affis et les affres d'un défi de Franck Etienne, by Franck Etienne. So welcome, Jean. It's a pleasure to have you. It's a pleasure to see you again.
Thank you, Inma. I will try to be brief. And first of all, I want to say that I will speak in French, but they will have a translation of my short communication. I will post it in the chat if I can. Je voudrais d'abord dire que tout ça, c'est en mémoire, pour moi, c'est en mémoire de Marie Scondé, morte cette année de pandémie. Et pour notre ami Franck Etienne, qui est actuellement cloué sur un lit d'hôpital à cause de Covid. C'est suite à une initiative, une demande de ma collègue Lara-Bonilla que je me suis mis à réfléchir un peu comment mettre ensemble. C'est un peu compliqué, hein, je m'excuse parce que je dois faire 3 exercices en même temps. Aller dans le chat et puis, bon, voilà. OK. Donc, suite à l'invitation de professeur Lara-Bonilla, en novembre de l'an dernier, je me suis mis à cogiter sur l'idée de rassembler en un tout cohérent un corpus de textes inédits sur des questions brûlantes actuelles des rapports blanc-noir, de la colonisation, des séquelles de l'esclavage moderne, de la nomination, désignation des sujets africains au sud du Sahara et de leurs descendants en terre américaine. Par chance, mon collègue Asselin Charles, à la même période, m'envoie un lien pour une communication de Daniel Laferrière sur le mot nègre et sa valeur exceptionnelle dans la langue de Molière, qui est aussi celle de l'acte de l'indépendance d'Haïti. Donc, pour moi, ce texte de Laferrière était important et je pensais qu'il avait sa place dans cet ensemble. Ça a été mon premier choix, en fait, de choisir ce texte de Laferrière pour commencer. Cette situation particulière, puisque ce n'est pas un inédit, doublée de ma volonté de rendre accessible au public anglophone cet ensemble francophone, me porta à opter fermement pour des traductions anglaises. On a eu beaucoup de discussions sur les faits, comment on va faire, où trouver l'argent, etc. Mais on a eu la chance que Hostos Review, donc le collège Hostos, avait un peu de fonds. Syracuse University a mis un peu de fonds pour les traductions et je les remercie infiniment. Parce que trop souvent, il fallait payer ces gens. Trop souvent, on avait des traducteurs, mais il fallait les payer. On pense que tout ça, c'est pas du travail, c'est du plaisir. On écrit par plaisir. Alors que le travail d'écriture, c'est une vraie torture, au sens propre du terme. Donc, je vais poster, parce que c'est compliqué, hein, je vais poster le truc.
I would like to offer the opportunity to speak to our other co-editor and then Madame President Daisy Coco de Filippis and Charles Drago, our provost, will offer welcoming remarks to the authors and to everybody in the audience, if that's okay. So just acknowledging their presence right now. And I apologize for not acknowledging it earlier and passing the baton to you earlier, as I was nervous at the beginning of the event. But please, since we had one editor, co-editor speak, let's provide this opportunity also to Rey Andújar to just say a few words about the issue, and then we'll move on with the remarks from President Coco de Filippis and Provost Drago. President, if you would be so kind.
Thank you, Profesora. Mil gracias. I just want to say, first of all, how absolutely delighted I am to be here in all of your company, but in particular, my dear sister Chiqui Vicioso. I'm reminded today of 1993, when at your college, we held the Women of Hispaniola Conference, where we celebrated the sisterhood among the women in the island. And they were French and Spanish language presentations. And we honor Aida Cartagena Portalatin at that event. She died the following year. So Doña Aida stayed at our home and was really pampered by my husband and myself. And we felt that we were in real, there is a little publication that your college made of that volume. If anybody would like a copy, I may have one or two left, I'm not sure. So I want to say that. I want to say that the guest editors, Jonassaint and Rey Andújar, have done a superb job. It is fantastic to think that we are at Hostos and we're talking about 3 languages in this really meaningful journal. Profesora, we owe you a lot. It was Professor Isaac Oldenburg who began this project, and you have continued with great enthusiasm and intelligence, and featuring the diversity and the kindness of what it means to be all one family in the Caribbean. It means a lot to me. I also honor Marie-Célie today, and all of the losses of most of all the people of Haiti, and all of the trials and tribulations that they are going through right now. So in my remarks, I wish to really note that for me, this has been difficult to witness some of these things. I also want to tell you that I am familiar with many of the works feature. Some are new, but some are not so new, feature in the journal, and I applaud you all. And I am so very happy that you are here and that Hostos could do this. And I want to say that I am so looking forward to the joy of the readings and the conversation. Already the sense of humor among the writers and the editors was just fabulous, just the pre-moment. This issue of the call, Kianny, I mean, you know, that was pretty great. And Ray took it well, a father of children now, a serious man. So very, very nice to have you all. Mil gracias. Bendiciones.
Thank you, President. Thank you so much. Provost Drago.
Yes, welcome and good afternoon. Bienvenidos and buenas tardes and bienvenue and bon après-midi. So it is an honor and a pleasure to be here today with a new issue of the Revista Hostosiana, and it's titled, of course, De las condiciones negras, un diálogo entre el Caribe francófono y el hispano. So excuse me if I didn't say that correctly, but I tried, okay? And what a wonderful, wonderful first trilingual issue devoted to issues of Blackness and colonialism, and writings that reflect the experiences of all the diasporas. It's nice to have una familia, everyone coming together to speak about these things. And it's a much needed conversation in the Caribbean literature. We have many, many distinguished editors and guests. And, you know, I know Daisy Coco de Filippis for many years, and I've heard her mention many of you, you know, in her travels, and it's just an honor to be in your company. And, you know, and it's a true exchange of ideas amongst great leaders relating to this literature. I would also like to say thank you, gracias, to Professor Inmaculada Lara-Bonilla for all her hard work in bringing this together. She worked very, very hard, and it took a lot of time to get everybody together to come and speak about this wonderful literature. So with that, I say thank you, I say gracias, and I say merci. Thank you.
Thank you, gracias, merci, Professor. It's truly my honor to be able to be in such incredible company today. So without further ado, I would love to introduce Rey Andújar for his initial remarks to talk a little bit about the process of putting together this issue in collaboration and bringing these incredible authors from the Spanish-speaking Caribbean to the Hostos Review. Welcome, Rey. Oh, let me introduce your biography. I apologize. Sorry. So in English, en inglés, la biografía breve, brevísima de Rey Andújar. He holds a PhD in philosophy and Caribbean letters from the Centro de Estudios Avanzados de Puerto Rico y el Caribe. Oh, I have the Spanish. No, this is sorry, it is the English version. He is the author of several books of fiction, among them Candela, which has been adapted to a film by the Dominican filmmaker Andrés Farias-Cintrón to great acclaim as we speak. His novel, Los Gestos Inútiles, was awarded the 6th Premio Alba de Narrativa Latinoamericana y Caribeña during the Havana International Book Fair in 2015. In 2014, the Universidad de Acción Pro Cultura y Desarrollo, the APEC, and Editorial Isla Negra published his doctoral dissertation, also on Aida Cartagena Portalatin. His essay, Macho Mask, Narratives of Paternalism in Junot Diaz's Drown, appear in the volume Latin American Culture and Civilization, edited by Bonnie Misulinik. Rey Andújar has written the script also for the documentary Isla de Dos Repúblicas, based on works by Frank Moya Pons, the historian, and collaborated in El Huracán Perenne, a documentary on race and migration directed by Héctor Valdés. Andújar is an assistant professor of Spanish at Governor State University in Chicago. Welcome, Rey, again. Pleasure to have you.
Oh, thank you. It's a pleasure being here. And everything started with this issue with Professor Inmaculada Lara-Bonilla, which I think that she thought about me to put this, to help in putting this together, because, I do write in fiction about blackness and negritude in the Caribbean, but I have never actually attacked that or approached that in the academic form. But so it's a great opportunity for me to do this. And also to work on besides Jonassaint, which is an expert in these kind of issues. So what I want to say now, I don't want to take anything out of the issue, because it's, as you know, it's a great piece of work. You are being treated here to a beautiful set of writings. But what I want to say is that we have to do more. Like what we hope basically with this is to put the foundation of the first stone for this work to grow. Because one thing that impressed us when we were working on this is like this hasn't been done before, at least to this extent, to have, the three languages mixing there together. Unfortunately, you will see that we don't have as many Spanish text translated into French, which is something that we want to do in the future, maybe. But I think this is a great start, a great start for something beautiful. So what I want to ask you, convey to you today, after we hear our distinguished authors, reading and talking about their work, is to promote this. Take a look at it, see what authors would you have put instead of these authors, because anthologies and books like this are important for their absences, because then somebody comes along and says, hey, you need to put this person in. We want to write more about it. I wrote a whole dissertation about Aida Cartagena Portalatin because what I wanted to read wasn't there. So sometimes absences in this kind of work make the rest of the work. So thank you for being here today. This is very special for me again, because when I approach this work, I went to what I have closest to me: Dominican women, Caribbean Black women that I wanted to read, that I wanted to see in print. So maybe I was a little bit selfish when I put my selection together. But basically, I also wanted to see women writers that were already known, but also young Dominican or Caribbean Black writers that needed to be also that we need to start to pay attention to. So thank you. Have a wonderful day. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you for your words. Thank you for the nudge, Ray. It's a pleasure to work on this first stepping stone, or maybe not a first, right? But we have a good foundation for what may come out of this issue. And thank you for also noting the absences. So I have shared in the chat the order in which authors, our distinguished authors, are going to be reading. And again, please keep an eye on the chat for translations of their work into your language. So I will begin. I think that perhaps we are missing Dominique Deblaine. I was told that she had health issues, and I don't see her box on the Zoom call and the Zoom webinar. So we'll stand by in case she is able to join us, and we can return to her later. But I will be introducing Lauristely Peña Solano right now, so that we can start with our readings. Okay, so reading in English, posting in Spanish, yes? Okay, very good. So Lauristely Peña Solano is a co-founder, just one second, I'm reading the French here. Yes, a co-founder of something that I've been very interested in exploring and learning more about since I started hearing about it, which is the Anti-Canon Project. She coordinates also the Silvano Lora Public Workshop with Quisqueya Lora and Michelle Ricardo. She has published the poems Dictado de Luna, Abyecta, and Roja. In 2016, she published the biography of the renowned Dominican dancer and choreographer and teacher Josefina Minino under the title Josefina Minino with an Open Curtain in the English translation. Peña Solano coordinates with other writers the Diploma Virtual, virtual diploma in creative writing for Caribbean women writers, offered through the Pedro Francisco Bono Higher Education Institute in Santo Domingo and Dominican Republic. Thank you, Lauristely Peña, for joining us. The floor is yours, and we look forward to reading your manifiesto anti-canon.
Muchísimas gracias. Es un gusto grandísimo para mí estar en este espacio compartiendo con todas, todos. Voy a leer un fragmento del manifiesto anti-canon, que no lo escribí solo yo. Lo escribimos Ángela Hernández, Arlene Savaris, Denise Español, Michelle Ricardo, Patricia Minaya, Petra Saviñón y yo, y lo dedicamos a todas nuestras compañeras escritoras de Proyecto Anticanon. Y dice: Anticanon es encender el fuego de la crítica a las ideologías y esencialismos culturales, que son los valores estéticos universales que inhiben, torpedean, ignoran o minimizan las creaciones literarias y artísticas de las mujeres. Pone el ojo crítico entre el sistema patriarcal, misógino, racista, clasista, heteronormativo, que se esconde tras las experiencias estéticas que se nos imponen como válidas en detrimento de otras. Aún con su partícula negativa, valiosa en el equilibrio del yin y el yang, representa el concepto con el que queremos expresar que la literatura escrita por mujeres está llena de valores ignorados por el canon. El prefijo es una declaración de intenciones. Vamos a cambiar el panorama y lo estamos haciendo, al igual que lo hicieron nuestras ancestras que hoy y siempre reconocemos. Anticanon busca incluir, enriquecer, ampliar la mirada de las voces de la literatura, las artes, el pensamiento y las perspectivas con las cuales nos acercamos a los procesos de escritura y apreciación literaria. Es una invitación a cuestionar lo establecido, a desafiar el dogma, a crear sin temor al resultado de la disrupción. Surge por y para 4 propósitos que para nosotras son valores fundamentales. Primero, la verdad. Segundo, la libertad. Tercero, la solidaridad. Y cuarto, el desarrollo intelectual y humanización incluyente. El proyecto Anticanon es una investigación-acción, un esfuerzo por generar espacios de encuentro, estudio y reflexión de la literatura escrita por mujeres, que busca promover la figura y trabajo de las escritoras caribeñas, una apuesta por la visibilidad, la justicia y la equidad. Gracias.
Thank you so much, Lauristely. That was wonderful. It's wonderful to hear you, to hear the manifiesto in your voice. We will be able to discuss the piece in our discussion roundtable. But let's move on with listening to the different voices, listening to the different texts in different languages. We move on with a very interesting piece, which is an essay, also not a manifiesto, but almost a manifiesto, we could say, which is a piece by Dany Laferrière, the French academician, translated by Asselin Charles, who is here with us to read, I believe, the translation and the original essay in French, and an excerpt of the original essay in French will be posted in the chat for all to read in French, in the original French. So I will just say a few words about Dany Laferrière in English again. His life is, in his words, a bouquet with the scent of 5 cities. Port-au-Prince, where he spent his childhood with his grandmother in Petit Goave. Then he was exiled to Montreal, where he published all of his books. He then took a long detour through Miami before going to Paris, where he is now sitting at the Académie Française. From his first novel, Comment faire l'amour avec un nègre sans le fatiguer, translated as How to Make Love with a Negro Without Getting Tired, which earned him immediate recognition, to L'exil vaut le voyage, and the Medici Prize-winning L'Angime du Retour, I apologize, translated as The Return. So through all of this work, Dany Laferrière has, in his words, patiently built a powerful body of work that illuminates the nights of readers all over the world. Okay, and as I mentioned, his excerpt from the essay, Such a Charged Word, is going to be read by translator and Professor Asselin Charles. He is a retired language and comparative literature professor who is currently an independent scholar, a literary translator, and an editor. He has taught at various institutions in the US, Canada, Taiwan, Nigeria, and Haiti. His research focuses on the parallels and intersections in Black Atlantic literatures, particularly in Harlem Renaissance writings and in the Francophone, Creolephone, and Anglophone literatures of the Caribbean. Dr. Charles has produced the first English translation of Antenor Fermin's masterwork, The Égalité des races humaines, I'm butchering that title. I apologize, Aslan. In English, The Equality of the Human Races. More recently, he has published the critically acclaimed English translation of Frank Etienne's celebrated Creole novel, Désafi, which came out with University of Virginia Press. And in addition to these well-received literary translations, he has published the English versions of René de Pestre short stories in journals such as the Savannah Review or Metamorphoses. So he has a long list of academic articles and reviews in academic journals. Welcome, Dr. Charles. We're pleased to have you, and we're also pleased to read your beautiful translations in the issue. We're having trouble listening to you, Dr. Charles. So Asselin Charles is going to read from when we can hear him from Such a Charged Word by La Ferrière. Now, our next author reading from her contribution is Yaissa Jiménez. Okay, she's joining us, I believe, from the Dominican Republic. Is that correct, Yaissa? Yes. Okay, very good. So Yaissa Jiménez is a writer, a poet, a performer, a screenwriter, and in her words, addicted to contemplation. Her essays and articles explore issues related to African roots, Caribeñidad, feminism, and culinary arts. In 2014, she published a collection of erotic poems called Encuentro con Inmortales, Ritual Papaya. I think this is a different title. Oh, yes, Ritual Papaya, I apologize, was published in 2018 and is a fiery poetry accumulation. Her work has been translated into English, Portuguese, and German. She is currently pursuing an MFA in creative writing at NYU, at New York University. Welcome, Yaissa. We're looking forward to listening to your reading.
Hi, thank you very much for the invitation. I'm glad to be here, especially with the important topic about the Caribbean. And I'm having a pretty deep connection with that topic right now because I'm taking a class, a special class. And the name of the class is Huracán, and we're talking about the Caribbean and how we need to talk about the unity we need. No matter what. This is Solo para Locales. It's a poem about the view of the local people in the middle of the Dominican Republic, especially in a special street for me, Mendoza, San Jose de Mendoza, and a long commercial Dominican street in Santo Domingo Este. Solo para Locales. Siente el flujo natural de tu respiración y sal a respirar leyendo contextos de izquierda a derecha. Llega a una calle abultada de las tantas que fuerzan una doble vía en los barrios cimarrones de este pedazo de mundo. Respira el smog mientras el sol del mediodía te corta la frente en dos. Acércate a las verdulerías en las aceras e inhala el olor de los vegetales que tienen 3 días sin venderse. El hola preocupado de él o la verdulera, su sudor dilatado por las ganas de verte sacar un par de centavos de tus bolsillos. Muévete a una pollera. A las 11 a.m. respira el olor a sangre que gotea desde la barra. El vapor del pollo remojado en agua caliente, el olor a tripas, carne, pico y pala, a óxido de machete veterano, a gente maquinando maniobras para ver que esa carne dé para todos en una casa abarrotadas de bocas colgando de un sueldo mínimo. Ve al malecón, Guibia o bien Montesinos, y respira el hedor de un fallo que te quitó el mar más dulce, cercano y vallano de tus sueños. Corta camino y ve directo a tu hogar, él o los lugares de la comodidad de tu alma. Y olfatea los tuyos como viralata. Olfatéate tú. Graba así el aroma de todo lo que en realidad importa. Una larga memoria de lo que sí es vital. Respira profundo cada dato. Redirecciona ruta hacia el mar y exhala en la orilla. Cuéntale a la playa todo lo que respiraste, conversen. Escucha a su salmuera eterna decirte mapas y rutas, cosas y manifiestos, ruidos y predicciones, valores que enterrar. Y recuerda, dato importante, no olvides ser gentil contigo durante todo el proceso. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Yaisa. This was a beautiful reading in your voice.
I just want to say that the translation is in English and it's in the chat. So you want to take it?
Yes. Yes, all poems, all readings should have a translation in the chat. Yes. So please follow that. That was great. Yes, Yaisa, that was beautiful. Thank you. So up next in our list of distinguished readers and authors today is Kianny Antigua. My student Marcia Belve is helping me introduce Kianny in this case. It's a pleasure to have students participate in events such as this. I hope others are in the public, in the audience, in the public room. So please take it away, Marcia. Go ahead.
Buenas tardes a todos. Kianny Antigua, República Dominicana, 1979. Narradora, poeta y traductora. Trabaja como profesora titular de español en Dartmouth College y como traductora y adaptadora independiente para Revista BO en Sound Design Inc. Antigua ha publicado 22 libros de literatura infantil, 4 de cuentos, 2 poemarios, una antología, un libro de microficción, una novela y una revista. Ha ganado 16 premios literarios y sus textos aparecen en diversas antologías, libros de texto, revistas y otros medios. Algunos de sus relatos han sido traducidos al inglés, al francés y al italiano. Es la traductora y narradora de la novela dominicana de Angie Cruz.
Muchas gracias, Marcia, Inmaculada, Rey, Jen, gracias, muchísimas gracias a Daisy por sus palabras. Encantada de estar aquí con ustedes. Voy a leerles un microcuento muy realista, por cierto, que lleva un epígrafe, bueno, se titula Secador, y lleva un epígrafe que dice, destierro, antes que terminar bajo el dominio de la mentira, de la ignorancia y del miedo. La morena me estregaba el pelo y me recordaba lo bien que me caería un buen desrizado. Mientras lo hacía, conversaba con otra mujer de tez más clara acerca de la situación dominico-haitiana. Yo lo que sé es que uno es de donde nace. Sí, pero es que esos haitianos son muchos y son malos. Eso sí es verdad. Esos negros no nos quieren. Interrumpo y pregunto, ¿y nosotros? ¿Los queremos a ellos? Lo que pasa es que ellos son raros y además la mayoría son santeros, alegó la india Clara, aludiendo a mi pregunta. Y brujos, toditos bregan con eso de brujería, añadió la primera y agregó que ella no era racista, sino que ellos eran malagradecidos. La conversación tomaba auge y las divas coincidían en eternizar la vaina, pero una estruendosa voz desvió mi atención. El ruido salía de un altoparlante ahí mismo, dentro de aquel salón de belleza.
Lo que escuché era parte de una misa que dictaba un religioso y estas eran, según él, palabras de Dios. Mandaré cataclismos, tormentas, terremotos para que me teman, porque el hombre ha ignorado mi voz y se ha dedicado a contradecir mi palabra, estudiando ciencias, filosofía y caminando otros caminos malignos que lo alejan de mí. Ante tanto patriotismo y palabras divinas, me sentía agradecida de que la India me cubriera los oídos con unas orejeras plásticas, mientras la morena me metía en la boca del infierno. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. Merci. Gracias, Kianny.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you.
Muchísimo bello oírlo, un poco dramatizado, ¿no? It was great. Thank you so much. Our next author up, since we're running short of time, is Evelyn Troyo. She lives in Port-au-Prince. I have to curb my French. In Haiti, she teaches in the French department at the Université d'État de Haiti. She has published 4 books of short stories. In 2004, Troyo received the Prix de romancière francophone du Club Soroptimiste de Grenoble for her novel Rosalie l'Infâme, the infamous Rosalie. In 2005, Troyo's first piece of theater, Le Bleu de Lille, received another award from ETC Caraïbes. She has also published 4 books of poetry in French and Creole. Her novel, La Mémoire au Bois, presents a compelling view of the dictatorship in Haiti and received the prestigious award Le Prix Caribe de la Caraïbe et du Tout Monde in 2010. Her 7th and latest novel, Désiré Congo, is taking place in Saint-Domingue before the last battle against Napoleon's army. She has been an invited participant at many academic conferences and contributed to numerous journals and periodicals in Haiti, France, and in North America. After the 2010 earthquake, Troyo and her siblings have funded the Marie-Célie Cultural Center to help promote literature and culture to disadvantaged youth. Welcome so much, Evelyne Trouillot. It's an honor to have you and to listen to you read from your piece in the journal, which translates in English, "Where does the insult begin? Where does the indignity end?" Please take it away. Thank you. Please unmute.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for the invitation. I'm going to read in French, but I wanted to say a few words in English, since I think that's a lingua franca. And I'm very happy to be here with all of you. And I wrote my piece about the complexity of the Caribbean and the unity also of the Caribbean, and especially when we meet outside the region, when we meet in other cities, and the welcome that we get when we are, migrating to our other places, and the importance to look back at history and to understand why we are migrating, and what is, what are the links between us. And sometimes we forget that. And that's what my piece is all about, and the perception of history. And I'm thinking about my first arrival in Brooklyn, and when it was, I met for the first time so many Puerto Ricans, and other people from other countries that were close to me, but I didn't know too much about them. So it was in many ways a melting pot, the Caribbean melting pot. Okay, so I hope you will have the translation, the French translation, the English translation, sorry. So I will read a few paragraphs of my piece. Où commence l'affront, où finit l'indignité? Il y a plusieurs années, je débarquais à Gênes d'un train venant de Paris. La première phrase qui me vint à l'esprit, tout naturellement, fut celle que j'avais répétée sur les bancs de l'école des Sœurs à Port-au-Prince. C'est à Gênes, en Italie, que naquit Christophe Colomb. Une phrase que, petite fille, j'avais répétée avec la vénération qui convient quand on parle d'un héros ou d'un grand homme. Cependant, la colonisation espagnole, symbolisée pour beaucoup par Christophe Colomb et ses caravelles, provoqua entre autres de son arrivée en 1492 jusqu'à 1540 la disparition de la population autochtone de l'île d'Hispaniola, la République d'Haïti et la République dominicaine. Un scénario similaire eut lieu à Porto Rico, Cuba et la Jamaïque. Notre vision de l'histoire se construit très tôt, dès notre première rencontre avec les manuels scolaires et par transmission orale avec les événements majeurs ou les grands hommes et femmes de l'histoire, même lorsque ces dernières sont souvent placées en arrière-plan. Ainsi, les petits Américains de la maternelle à qui on apprend une version bien particulière de la Thanksgiving absorbent informations et attitudes et s'approprient une vision de cette célébration qui est bien éloignée des faits historiques. Un mythe de partage et d'union nationale autour d'un repas somptueux que contestent les descendants d'Amérindiens qui dénoncent plutôt le carnage brutal des tribus de Peco par les soldats anglais en 1636. Les mythes se construisent souvent à partir des silences de l'histoire. Il y a 2 ans, en résidence d'écriture à La Rochelle, je passais souvent sur le Vieux-Port, un espace nouvellement aménagé avec d'immenses panneaux retraçant l'histoire de la ville. Étant haïtienne, dès les cours primaires, j'avais bien entendu appris que La Rochelle, après Nantes et Bordeaux, était l'un des plus grands ports négriers. Près de 500 navires sont partis de ce port du XVIIe au XIXe siècle, contribuant au commerce triangulaire. Au cours de la traite, des centaines de milliers d'Africains ont été capturés, plusieurs ont péri avant d'arriver au Nouveau Monde. Pourtant, aucun de ces magnifiques panneaux que j'ai vus ne fait mention du caractère inhumain de ce commerce. Sur les panneaux existants, le langage utilisé semble plutôt expliquer, justifier même le rôle que les commerçants rochelais ont joué dans ce qui constitue un crime contre l'humanité. Avec une dose de fierté à peine voilée, les panneaux proclament que l'argent de la vente des esclaves rapportait un profit qui contribua à faire de la ville le 2e port du commerce triangulaire après Nantes. On devrait peut-être applaudir l'esprit d'entreprise des commerçants rochelais qui se sont enrichis en participant si activement à un commerce infâme. Artistes, écrivains, poètes se retrouvent quelque part interpellés par ces grandes questions de représentation de l'histoire et leur articulation dans le monde de la création littéraire et artistique. Car représenter, c'est toujours choisir, en rejetant d'autres possibles. Raconter aussi, c'est choisir, c'est parfois occulter, interpréter. Peut-on rappeler l'histoire des efforts de résistance, de révolte individuelle ou collective, sans remonter à l'histoire de l'indignité préalable, cause première de la résistance? Comment les 2 facettes de ces histoires nous arrivent-elles? Où commence l'affront? Où finit l'indignité? Dans les rues de New York et de plusieurs autres grandes villes occidentales, des milliers d'immigrants se croisent, originaires de Porto Rico ou du Sénégal, du Venezuela ou de Madagascar, de la Bolivie ou d'ailleurs. Des milliers d'immigrants avec des langues et des costumes et des coutumes différentes, partageant de plus en plus des espaces de vie. Et les quartiers se forment, les communautés naissent, les barrières s'érigent. Les immigrants font face à des difficultés de nature ou d'importance différentes selon la force économique et sociale de la communauté qui les accueille, selon son nombre d'électeurs potentiels et sa capacité d'influencer la politique américaine, locale ou régionale. Les politiques migratoires varient au gré des enjeux de pouvoir. Les immigrants deviennent souvent des pions utilisé par exemple pour assurer ou renforcer une victoire électorale. Dans plusieurs régions du monde, des réfugiés fuient leur foyer pour une myriade de raisons politiques, climatiques, économiques et autres, affrontant la mort pour trouver un lieu de vie moins désespérant. Ils se retrouvent souvent abandonnés en pleine mer, enfermés dans des camps militaires, humiliés, exploités. Combien songent en les regardant aux indignités premières qui les ont conduits à cette situation? Où commence l'affront? Où finit l'indignité? Merci.
Merci. Gracias. Thank you. Evelyn Troyo, I apologize for not being able to offer the translation simultaneously in the chat, as I believe one of our translators wasn't able to post. So I did my best to search for the text and post it. But I look forward to your comments in the during the discussion, of course, to learn more about the genesis and the purpose of that text. Our next author is Luisa Angélica Sherzada Vicioso Sanchez, Chiqui Vicioso. She is a poet. Actually, I have the they have the biography, her biography in Spanish. I'll be reading that. If we could post the English in the chat, that would be great. So Chiqui Vicioso es poeta, ensayista y dramaturga, trabajando en algo muy divertido ahora también. Ha publicado los libros de poesía Viaje desde el agua, Un extraño ulular traía el viento, Internamiento, Evasiones, así como los de ensayo Algo que decir, ensayo sobre literatura femenina, Julia de Burgos, La nuestra, Salomé Ureña de Enríquez, a 100 años de un magisterio, Hostos y su visión de la mujer, entre muchos otros. También es autora de las obras de teatro Whiskey Sour, Salomé U, Cartas a una ausencia, La carretera, Desvelo, Diálogo entre Salomé Ureña y Emily Dickinson, Magdalena, Danza de teatro, Perrerías, New York Islas y Andrea Evangelina. Todas estas son obras de teatro. Vicioso ha sido reconocida con la Medalla de Oro al Mérito de la Mujer y la Orden de Don Quijote de la Sociedad Nacional Hispánica Sigma Delta Pi. También fundó el Círculo de Mujeres Poetas y organizó el primer concurso de décima y poesía de la mujer campesina y de las ferias del libro dedicadas a las poetas Aida Cartagena Portatín, Carmen Natalia Martínez Bonilla y Julia de Burgos, entre otras iniciativas culturales. Esta mujer no para. Desde 1986 publica una columna en el Listín Diario y el Nacional, así como un ensayo mensual en el suplemento cultural Areito. Bienvenida a Hostos de nuevo. Es un honor tener a Chiqui Vicioso con nosotros, con nosotras, nosotres. Y vamos a escuchar su poema Haití con la traducción original de Daisy Coco de Filipis, nuestra presidenta, y que va a leer. Entonces vamos a tener el gusto de poder escuchar en su voz la traducción, mejor que leerlo en el chat. Muchísimas gracias, presidenta, por ofrecerse o por aceptar esa lectura también. Entonces comenzamos con el original Haití.
Well, first of all, I'd like to congratulate Hostos Community College and the group that has put out this magazine in 3 languages. I told Ray that it should include Dutch because when I've been to the Dutch Caribbean, I found that Dominican kids speaking 4 languages very fluently. They go from English to Spanish to French to Dutch. And that's going to be the Dominican man and woman of the future. We have 2 million Dominicans outside, and no matter how much we try to make un muro de Berlín of Spanish, in the Dominican Republic, reality is going to smash that because our children are trilingual, they speak quadrilingual, and they will write and their literature will reflect the multiple languages that they've been trained in and that they speak at home and at school. So congratulations, and let's hope that the next magazine, number 18, will have text in Dutch. This poem I wrote in 1977 when I went for the first time to Haiti. I think it explains itself. Haití, te imagino virgen, antes de que piratas precursores te quitaran tus vestidos de caoba y te dejaran así, con tus senos redondos al aire y tu falda de hierba desgarrada, apenas verde, marrón tímida. Haití, te imagino adolescente, olorosa vetiver, tierna de rocío, sin esa multitud de cicatrices con que te integraron al mercado de mapas y con que te ofrecen multicolor en las aceras de Puerto Príncipe, en Jacmel, en San Marcos, en el Artibonite, en un gran baratillo de hojalata. Haití, caminante que afanosa me sonríes, interrumpiendo siestas de veredas, aplastando piedras, asfaltando polvo, con tus pies sudorosos y descalzos. Haití, que te es el arte de mil formas y que pintas las estrellas con tus sueños. Por ti entendí que el amor y el odio, como tú, se llaman.
Haiti, I imagine you a virgin before 4 running pirates have removed your mahogany dress to have you thus with your bare round breast and your torn grass skirt barely green, timidly brown. Haiti, I imagine you an adolescent, fragrant vetiver, tender with dew, without the numerous scars displayed in the traffickers' maps and multicolored banners sold on the sidewalks of Port-au-Prince, Jamel, St. Mark, and Artibonite, in a dramatic thin plate bargain. Haiti, traveler who eagerly smiles at me, interrupting the quiet of paths, softening stones, paving dust with your sweaty bare feet. Haiti, who can give art 1,000 shapes, and who paints the stars with your hands. I found out that love and hate share your name.
Muchísimas gracias a ambas. It's a beautiful poem, a beautiful translation, and really, really moving and speaking to this connection between the two sides, the two parts of the island. Our last but not least, and really distinguished author tonight is Marie-Célie Agnant. Okay, we have the also the translation of Haiti in the chat. Marie-Célie Agnant.
Bonsoir.
Marie-Célie Agnant is a poet, short story writer, and novelist. She is the author of a remarkable work, including Le Livre d'Emma, a novel which evokes the hardships endured by women slaves in the West Indies and the difficulty of broaching and legitimizing this part of history even today. She also publishes books for young readers. An alert writer, Agnant always pays attention to the world around her. Her words bear both the stamp of poetry and the violence resulting from post-colonial societies that hover over glaring misery and indecent opulence. Her texts some of which have been translated into several languages, have their roots in contemporary social realities. She touches on questions such as exclusion, loneliness, racism, and exile, and explores the condition of women and our relationship to the past and to memory. She has also published in numerous anthologies and journals, and her work has appeared in Relations, Moebius, and Estuaire, among other periodicals. She's going to read an excerpt from her work of fiction translated into English in the journal as Soul Predators. Welcome to the journal. Welcome to Hostos, Marie-Célie Agnant. It's a pleasure and an honor to have you.
Oui, bonsoir, bonsoir. Merci beaucoup, Madame Bonilla. Bonsoir, Monsieur Jonassaint. Bonsoir, Monsieur Charles et tout. Bonsoir à tout le monde. Je suis vraiment très heureuse d'avoir été invitée à participer à ce collectif pour plusieurs raisons. Mais la raison principale, c'est que pour moi, la littérature et l'art. Est-ce qu'on m'entend bien? Est-ce qu'on m'entend comme il faut? Vous m'entendez? Do you hear me?
Oui, oui.
Oui, excusez-moi. Je considère que l'art et la littérature sont en général, enfin pour moi, constituent des passerelles, des ponts vers l'autre. Et je pense, en écoutant tous les gens parler, c'est tellement agréable quand on pense que l'ostracisme dont sont victimes assez souvent les citoyennes, les citoyens d'Haïti au sein même de cet espace caribéen, sauf à Cuba, bien entendu, depuis l'avènement de la Révolution. Ça me fait penser que bon, c'est un effort incontestable, un effort colossal pour lequel je vous remercie, enfin, les responsables de ce projet. Et je pense que la Caraïbe ne peut retrouver son âme sans la présence de la terre de Boukman, de Charlemagne Péralte, de Toussaint Louverture, de Dessalines. Et je crois que ces projets sont importants, mais qu'il faudrait en même temps ce que je pense être une révolution au plus profond de l'âme caribéenne, vraiment. Alors voilà, c'est peut-être une première pierre, enfin pour moi dans la littérature, que de participer à ce projet, quoi, de cette nouvelle âme. Alors moi, ce que je vais lire, comme l'a dit, c'est un texte sur lequel je travaille, un texte beaucoup plus ample, et c'est une partie de ce texte que j'ai intitulé « Dévoreur d'âme ». J'ai découvert en arrivant au Canada où on a toujours prétendu que l'esclavage n'avait pas existé, que c'était un mensonge. Encore un autre, il y en a beaucoup, vous voyez, les crimes fondateurs de nos sociétés sont bien cachés. Alors, il y a eu cette esclave Marie-Joseph Angélique qui, à l'âge de 27 ans, qui était née au Portugal, qui a voyagé ainsi de propriétaire en propriétaire. Elle a vécu peut-être en Angleterre, en France, enfin un peu partout, dans les bagages de ses maîtres. Et voilà que Marie-Joseph Angélique, à 27 ans, vit à Montréal, où elle est la propriété d'une femme, madame enfin, je ne me rappelle plus son nom, et elle est accusée d'avoir mis le feu à la maison de sa propriétaire, de sa maîtresse. Et avec un procès bâclé, en très peu de temps, suite à un procès bâclé, cette femme subit la torture. Ensuite, on la pend, elle est pendue sur une place dans ce qu'on appelle aujourd'hui le Vieux-Montréal. Par la suite, son corps est brûlé et les cendres ont été dispersées. Alors, je dis souvent que dans les fenêtres qui s'ouvraient devant moi à mon arrivée au Québec, je découvrais aussi cette histoire de Marie-Joseph Angélique. Et c'est le texte sur lequel je travaille pour un prochain livre. Et voilà, je vais vous lire un petit extrait. Je dois vous dire que l'extrait que je vais vous lire raconte lorsque une petite fille de 5 ans, c'est à partir de son témoignage qu'on décide de condamner Marie-Joseph Angélique, parce que tout le monde disait que c'était elle qui avait mis le feu, mais personne ne l'avait vue, sauf cet enfant qui, à l'époque, était âgé de 5 ans. Je débute donc. Comme dans un mauvais rêve, je l'entends. 2 fois de suite, elle répète m'avoir vu prendre les braises dans une pelle et monter au grenier pour y mettre le feu. J'avais beau écouter ces paroles, je refusais d'y croire. Je me rappelle simplement avoir ouvert la bouche pour leur demander qui avait pu lui ordonner de vomir une telle horreur. Contre quoi avait-elle troqué son âme de seulement 5 années d'existence? L'enfant se tait. Elle garde la tête haute, le regard fixe. Et tandis qu'elle se retourne pour descendre les marches, je sens au même instant mon corps s'échapper de moi. Il n'était pas à moi, ce corps noir. Il ne m'avait sans doute jamais appartenu d'ailleurs. Je compris que du jour de ma naissance, tout comme mes joies, mes douleurs, mes peines, mes espoirs n'avaient existé qu'au gré de leur fantaisie, mon corps aussi était à eux. Cette haine indescriptible du corps noir, me disais-je à ce moment-là, avait donc été semée dans la mémoire de l'enfant au moment de sa venue au monde. C'était ni plus ni moins qu'une exécration du corps noir, irrigué, bien nourri par notre sang, ce sang noir venu de l'autre côté de l'océan. Leur haine était grasse, repue, fertile, comme la terre de ces nouveaux territoires qui sans répit s'en abreuvaient, tandis que nos cris s'engouffraient dans le vent. À cette époque déjà, ils croyaient avoir percé tous les secrets de l'univers. Suffisants et insatiables, comme bêtes sauvages, les crocs dehors, la queue dans la bouche, ils allaient. À cette époque, ma vie était à son aurore. Je n'avais que 26 ans. Il me livrait aux flammes après des semaines de torture. C'était au mois de juin de l'année 1734. Pour nous bannir de la vie, nous rayer du genre humain, ce système faisait appel à l'intouchable en nous. Je n'étais pas la première à être sacrifiée sur le bûcher de ces nations dites civilisatrices. Malheureusement, je ne fus pas la dernière. Sur l'île de Saint-Domingue, 20 années plus tard, ils offraient François Macandal aux mêmes flammes. Garder l'âme hors de portée du saccage était le défi. Rescapée du désastre, mon âme a fait de moi cette femme éternelle, négresse, femme flamme. J'aurai bientôt 300 ans bien comptés et je me suis coltée à toutes les souffrances et à toutes les avanies. Du nord au sud, de l'est à l'ouest, j'ai appris à déchiffrer tous les cieux et je sais reconnaître les voies multiples des océans. Je déploie mes pas sur l'échine de la nuit en quête de chaque grain de cette poussière qui m'attend pour que je lui montre le chemin. Poussière de mon corps, de ma chair et de mes os. Un jour viendra et j'aurai récolté chaque éclat de ma chair, j'aurai rassemblé chaque écornure d'os. Ce jour-là, je m'en irai. Sur la route, parfois, j'entends le bruit de mes os mâchés par les brodequins. J'entends aussi ce chant porté par la poussière. J'entends passer ma poussière, comme on dit mon sang. Je lui dis, attends, prends ton temps et sois sûr de ne rien oublier. J'entends aussi le vent qui porte la poussière et le souffle d'une ville incroyablement froide au mi-temps de l'été. C'était un lundi, le 21 juin de l'année 1734. Merci.
Merci beaucoup. Muchísimas gracias por esa lectura.
De nada.
Beautiful, beautiful reading of a beautiful piece. Of course, everybody can read more in the journal issue and learn more about these authors through their biographies. I don't know if we can go back to Asselin Charles, if we're able to listen to you. We're about to reach our end time with just the readings, but if we're able to listen to you, I would love to hear your translation of La Ferrière. Probably not. Okay, so just to wrap up, and we can stay a little longer. For those of you who can stay, I would love to continue the conversation. And for the audience, the members of the audience who can stay and continue the conversation, that would be great. I know that at least 2 of you have to leave for a classroom, for a class session. But if you can stay, I would love to discuss a little bit about your piece, first of all. Whatever you shared, what you decided to contribute to this issue, what does it focus on? Why that such focus? For instance, we have pieces on hair, pieces that speak about the body. We have pieces that discuss a particular word. The focus may be blackness in some texts, colonialism or racism in other texts. So what was your choice? If you can walk us through that, you can please just open your mic, or we can go in the same order in which we started if you like, or if the spirit moves you to speak and share, please just open your mics and discuss. We'll try to follow with translations as well.
Bueno, yo elegí el poema Haití porque lo escribí en el 77, cuando recién yo comenzaba a descubrir mi identidad como mujer caribeña. Eso sucedió cuando emigré a Nueva York en el 1967 y tuve mi primer encontronazo con la realidad con un oficial de inmigración que me dijo, "What is this business of India Clara?" Y yo le dije que ese era mi color. Y él me dijo que India y Clara no era un color, que yo era una mujer mulata. Y entonces todo eso que me había negado mi cultura durante toda mi niñez y adolescencia, de golpe lo descubrí en los Estados Unidos. Creo que eso se ratificó luego con un viaje a Haití, con un viaje a Cuba y con un viaje a África, donde los pedazos, no los fragmentos de mi identidad se fueron, yo diría, incorporando. Y hoy lo que traté de hacer fue un tributo a ese primer momento en un proceso de concientización que fue el viaje a Haití.
Gracias, Chiqui, muchísimas gracias. We are missing the translator at this moment.
I could do it in English, I don't mind. What I said is that I decided to read the poem Haiti because it marked the beginning of my identity as a mulatto woman.
We're having trouble hearing well, but I could do some translation if I could hear well. What I understood is that Chiqui Vicioso was remembering in 1977 a trip to New York where she was, I'm sorry, I'm having trouble listening. You're unmuted.
I am happy to go for the translation if you feel like, okay?
For sure.
Because I'm familiar with that part of her biography. She said that in a sense, her identity in the Dominican Republic at the time, she was told that she was India Clara, which is a light-skinned Indian woman. And she had to come to the United States to realize that, at the entrance in immigration, they said, well, why, what is India Clara? That's not a color. You're a mulata, this is who you are. And so she began this search through her stay in New York and her studies that brought her to go back to try to find who she was as a woman from the Caribbean, a woman of color from the Caribbean. And her first encounter with that was that first trip to Haiti that she records in this poem of 1977. And then subsequent trips to Africa and back to the Dominican Republic, and a lot of self-reflection, which brought her to an understanding and a solidarity with Haiti and with who we are in the Dominican Republic. I remember I wrote in 1985 an article that the Hunter Journal published, Indias y Trigueñas no longer. There's no such thing as Indian Trigueñas. Dominican women writers speak. And it was about Chiqui and others who identify who they were as women of mixed race, mostly Black or brown, who had a deep connection with their sisters and brothers in Haiti as well. The women of that generation in the 80s, that Chiqui led that group of, were the ones that actually pushed the envelope and embracing Haiti in a very generous way. There have been some writings by Don Pedro Mir and others, Las Dos Patrias de Santo Domingo and other books, but this group of women as a collective in multiple ways identified as the sisters of the Haitian women.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Presidenta. That was great background information and also biographical information for that piece, ID. I think that we have some of the authors had to exit already. We have some of the regrets in the chat. No problem, because the event was supposed to finish at 6:30. But as I mentioned, it would be great if we, for those of you who can stay and the audience members who can stay, to continue the conversation just a little longer if possible. So Lauristely, Kianny, you have your hand up. Please go ahead.
Me gustaría comentar que el texto que leí, Secador, es un texto tan realista como ficticio, como dije al principio, y lo escogí porque de algún modo presenta nuestra idiosincrasia atada a cierto estereotipo, pero no por ello menos cierta. Es un micro casi imagen que, donde se presentan temas de colorismo, nacionalismo, colonialismo, patriotismo, fanatismo, ignorismo, para seguir con los ismos. En un texto brevísimo abrazo la ironía y el concepto de otredad para desnudarnos. Es un texto muy crudo y donde no hay que dar muchas explicaciones, pero que, como dije, está muy cargado de nosotros, de esa India clara, de esa morena, de esa necesidad de otredad, donde el pelo lacio reina, etcétera, etcétera. O sea, todas estas cosas con las que me crié, con las que igual que Chiqui, igual que Lauristely, me imagino que Yaisa, esa cuestión de que o te asimilas a la blanquitud o no te aceptamos, o no eres bonita, o no eres nuestra, cuando en realidad ese nosotros es otra cosa, ¿no? Y bueno, por ahí va la cosa.
Wonderful, thank you. We have a comment from the audience. This is Natasha Berkshire is sharing, this is a much needed conversation. Ignorance of each other's history and experience is the most powerful weapon of racism and white supremacy. So thank you for raising the conversation, and thank you for your text that raised that conversation and bring it to a new level. I think Lauristely has unmuted, so I suppose that she wanted to add something. Adelante.
Yo sentí la libertad de parte del editor de enviar distintos tipos de texto, así que envié para la revista el manifiesto anticanon, 2 poemas y un microrelato. En especial, ya sabemos de qué habla el manifiesto anticanon, habla del racismo, pero también de otras opresiones. Los textos que envié particularmente sí que abordan principalmente toda esta reflexión que he tenido que hacer y que la literatura me ha ayudado a desarrollar sobre mi identidad como mujer negra, que tuve que construir y educarme en ella yo solita a través de referentes ya buscados por mí de adulta, y aborda principalmente esa problemática del cabello, que es donde más se ve o se siente de manera más violenta, porque las otras formas de racismo son menos violentas. Entonces, menos violentas menos visibles, no menos violentas, perdón, menos visibles en el sentido de que yo me tengo que alisar ese proceso y tengo unos señalamientos que son muy constantes, que no necesariamente se ve y se percibe tanto con el colorismo, con las oportunidades que tengo o que no tengo según mi tono de piel, aunque con el cabello sí se ve. Es decir, yo no puedo trabajar en un banco con este cabello o en muchos lugares. Entonces, los textos reflexionan sobre esa cuestión, sobre todo cuando yo era más chiquita y eso me afectaba más, el tener los moños de tusa, como dice en mi microrelato.
Thank you so much. Marie-Célie Agnant is saying thank you and saying, but feel free to unmute if you'd like to say something with your voice and interject.
Oui, je disais que je vous remercie une fois de plus pour cette rencontre autour de la littérature. Nous devons travailler très fort parce que, comme le dit Angela Davis, nous surfons encore sur les ruines de l'esclavage. Alors, j'apprécie et puis mille merci.
Mille merci à vous. It was a beautiful way to introduce, very poetic and very beautiful to introduce the question of slavery in Canada that you made us think through and think about and become more and more aware of. And as you say, there's a lot of work to be done. There is a lot of work. I want to recognize everybody's work in putting together this issue already, and also the awareness that more work needs to be done to continue this conversation. So thank you very much. I know Marie-Célie Agnant, you need to leave for probably to go to Jean Jonassaint's class right now. It's a back-to-back for you. So thank you for joining us to the end. We have a question from Franz Voltaire, I believe from the audience. Please go ahead, a question or a comment. Okay. We can go back to you when you're ready. Yaisa, I saw your hand up at some point, or you were on mute.
En mi caso, quería antes de irme, porque tengo un pequeño compromiso, la razón por la que solo para locales este poema y los demás poemas que envié a la revista es porque de mi parte yo estoy también muy interesada en lo que nos pertenece desde la perspectiva de lo no tangible, de que no está en los libros, que no está todavía en ningún lado, que está en nuestros sentidos, en nuestros cuerpos, viviendo en el espacio. Yo ahora mismo no estoy en el espacio y siento mucho más el espacio. Es una sensación muy extraña. Después de 34 años vivir vivir en la isla, vivir aquí ahora en Nueva York, es una sensación muy extraña. Bella en muchos sentidos, pero también muy rara. Y ese poema me lleva directamente al punto. Era un poema para que el que lo necesite, caribeño de República Dominicana específicamente, caribeñas, puedan volver a ese punto de repente. Que si el cuerpo no está, el cuerpo recuerde sensorialmente lo que estuvo viviendo en el instante. Yo creo que también eso es otra cosa que me gusta enfatizar, trabajar para nosotros, para lo que merecemos escuchar, para lo que merecemos consumir, para lo que el caribeño, la caribeña, los caribeños necesitan entender de sí mismos a través de las experiencias personales que pueden ser perfectamente colectivas. Entonces, ese poema fue una sensación completa. No fue con la intención, no había esta intención en mi cabeza. El poema tomó intención después de escrito. Y eso es lo que a mí me gusta, que el poema se presente primero cuerpo, sentido, alma, corazón, todo, espíritu, y después entender qué ese poema me quiso decir a mí. Y solo para locales es un poema bastante, podría decirse que la palabra es un poquito egoísta en un sentido, pero es con la sensación de que los locales entiendan, tú tienes muchísimo porque tu cuerpo ha sentido cosas, tus experiencias de vida, tu familia, lo que te llegó a través de información familiar, lo que tú tienes contigo es mucho, que nadie te diga lo contrario, porque nos han convencido de que no tenemos nada. Esa es una cosa que me encantaría que todo el mundo supiera siempre. Y si mi poesía sirve para algo en eso, le agradezco enormemente. Y nada, agradezco muchísimo la oportunidad de estar aquí hoy. Yo tengo ya que partir. Tengo un pequeño compromiso que cubrir, pero estoy encantada con todo lo que vi, todo lo que leí, todo lo que escuché.
Gracias. Merci. Thank you, Yaisa. It's been wonderful to have everybody. I know that Kianny Antigua had to leave. Also, Yaisa needs to be going to a commitment. I'd like to give Asselin Charles the opportunity to speak if that's possible at all. If not, I welcome any comments from anybody else, including anybody in the audience, in the chat. We are still 36 people together in this conversation. So please post your, you can post your questions in the chat. You can unmute, I believe, as well. And you can use the Q&A function as well. But I'm looking at the chat constantly, and if there are any questions, I see Natasha Brookshire has a question. You can type it in the chat, or you can ask to be unmuted, to be included in the conversation and be unmuted. Easier would be to post it in the chat. Okay, the question is, thus starting with the colonist languages, are we perpetuating the way colonization is shaping our conversation even now? A very important question for us in the journal and for this issue in particular. I know Jonassaint had to leave, but Ray, perhaps you could chime in terms of the use of language or languages, the authors as well. Please go ahead.
I acknowledge, the question, but we have to start somewhere. And those are the languages that we manage. I don't want to say, the colonist language. Well, languages, it's not their language. They don't own that language. Let's say that I take that language. I mean, if I'm being colonized and my ancestors and myself have suffered much from colonization, I got to take something from them. So if I can express what I need to do and what I feel in my history in that language, I'm appropriating that from them, I'm taking them from them. So it's an act of resistance too. And also, what's the alternative? How are we going to approach it? I think that basically we also can see that from another perspective. Again, I acknowledge the question, but also we can see it from another perspective. We are working with all languages here. We're trying to work all languages, and we are moving towards other languages. Maybe in the future, the work that we want to do with this project maybe will include Papiamento, and it's going to include Creole too. I mean, but we had to start somewhere. So I guess that's the best way that I can answer it. Like, I don't think how we could have approached it differently in regards to languages, but I don't want to think about Spanish or French or English as the colonist languages, because they are our languages too. We actually embellish these languages. We make them richer. So that's what I have to say about that.
Yes, Lauristely wanted to add something. Thank you so much, Ray.
Sí, yo quiero apoyar el excelente argumento que ha dado Ray, que lo corroboro 100% con el poema Mi Lengua de Aida Cartagena. Es un poema que explica claramente esta disyuntiva que podríamos tener con nuestra lengua, en este caso el español, pero también ella lo dice, espero que puedan leerlo, no lo voy a recitar completo porque es súper largo, pero ella habla de que esta lengua cambiante como el agua determina quién soy, qué soy, pero también ella termina recalcando que esta lengua ella lo transformó comiéndose las heces y lo transforma de muchísimas maneras para apropiarse de ella y no sea solo ese eco de silencio que nos deja el haber mutilado y desaparecido pues nuestros idiomas taínos que no conocemos. Sin embargo, recomiendo ese poema para reflexionar sobre esta disyuntiva que podríamos tener con el uso del español, porque el español es nuestro, es mío, y yo lo uso y lo transformo todos los días. Cada vez que lo uso, lo pienso, y claro que hay muchas cosas que no me gustan, por eso vivo luchando por el lenguaje inclusivo, pero precisamente como hablantes tenemos el poder de transformar el idioma. Como escritoras y escritores aquí tenemos ese poder, entonces vamos a adjudicárnoslos, no en la lengua de ningún colono, es nuestra lengua.
Thank you so much for that comment, and thank you for those of you who are paying attention to the chat and exchanging thoughts and even translations in the chat. I think Professor Ematicio would like to perhaps to add something as a linguist to this conversation. She is joining us from Syracuse University, and I'd like to acknowledge Syracuse University's contribution to the making of this journal by supporting several translators along the way. So please go ahead, Professor Ticio.
Thank you very much to everyone. I just want to share a few remarks, and I would like to start these remarks by thanking again the two guest editors, Professor Jonassaint and Professor Ray Andujar, for compiling and editing this new wonderful issue of Hostos Review, Revista Hostosiana, and for inviting me to this virtual presentation and the very enriching discussion event that we just had. I would like to extend my gratitude to the journal's chief editor, Professora Inmaculada Lara-Bonilla, a dear former colleague in our department, for generating the conversations that ended up on this volume and for all her work in this very successful project. And during the last hour and a half, we have witnessed how the different contributions to this remarkable volume throw light into some of the most pervasive topics in white-black race relations and offer us illuminating perspective on colonization and slavery and their many repercussions in our contemporary world. What we witnessed is just a very small sample of the exceptional work that you will find in the volume. I had the opportunity, I was privileged to glimpse over the volume, and I was taken aback from the extraordinary quality of all the contributions. Not only each piece is a wonderful asset by itself, but the combination of genres, just has mentioned, the traditional contemporary issues, and the multilingualism that we were just discussing makes this work outstanding at many levels and very interesting to many different audiences. And as a linguist, as you were saying, Inmaculada, I found innumerable aspects that caught my attention, such as, for example, the code switching that is all over the issue, and the insightful discussions of the different meanings of words across the languages. In summary, we are very fortunate, and we should be very grateful for having this volume that has benefited from the collaboration of exceptional professionals who provided voice to authors and topics that have not been very often represented, and that they should be more represented, as everybody has mentioned here. Authors, editors, and translators deserve our deepest acknowledgement for their outstanding work. And thanks are also due to all the attendees to this virtual presentation who have enriched the discussion with the interesting contributions on the topics in the volume and expanding to some other topics. I can only anticipate the ensuing and interesting offline discussions that will take place after these participants and other readers have a chance to enjoy this new volume of Hostos Review. I'm looking forward to the new further research and creative work that will be inspired by this volume. And thank you very much all for supporting and attending this event. And I was very delighted by being here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your support of this issue. Also, it took us a little bit on a detour towards closing, but we are closing at this point. And I would like to just ask one final question before we leave to the authors, to the contributors, and to perhaps Ray as well, since Emma-Ticia just mentioned her impression when reading these texts together. Really the extraordinary quality of the issue. If you have some thoughts about, I know Chiqui Vicioso already mentioned, we're missing the Dutch, of course we are missing so much in this issue, but what would be, in closing, your impression from what you have been able to read in the languages that you've been able to read? This is an experiment that we're doing, right? It's an experiment of an event in these 3 languages. Es un experimento editorial. Any impressions as your last words to round up the evening together?
Bueno, yo quería añadir algo. Una experiencia que he tenido como escritora es cómo el conocer otros idiomas afecta tu manera de escribir, ¿ok? Y tu manera de pensar. Y creo que se ha hecho muy poco en ese sentido, académicamente hablando. ¿Qué impacto tiene el inglés en el estilo de lo que tú escribes, en la síntesis, en el uso, es decir, en la manera de ver el idioma? Ese me parece a mí un tema fascinante para los escritores y las escritoras, porque definitivamente conocer otro idioma te permite ver el tuyo con ojos nuevos. Y entonces tú introduces una serie de recursos que tú aprendes de la otra lengua y que son importantísimos en tu creación. Para el futuro, creo que ese sería un seminario que habría que tener. Gracias.
A usted, esperemos que este número también contribuya un poco a alimentar este intercambio entre lenguas, entre escritoras, escritores, ¿verdad? Leyéndonos en diferentes lenguas. Seguimos teniendo una mano levantada. Franz Voltaire, if you're there. Mario Hernandez, one of my students, is there. If there's anything, you were let in for some reason, probably, into the discussion, so please unmute and intervene. Ray is ready to say something, I believe, as well. Ray, were you going to? I'm sorry, maybe I thought you were about to say something, or Lauristely, something about your reading these texts together with yours.
Bueno, yo tengo que tomar consejo en este sentido de mi mentora y amada Chiqui, admirada, porque la verdad es que yo nunca he sido muy buena en los idiomas. Puedo hablar inglés, pero la verdad como que no me interesó mucho. Y leer inglés, portugués, sin embargo, no lo había pensado con el tema que Chiqui plantea, cómo eso influye en mi escritura. Sobre este número estoy fascinada, encantada, no entiendo nada de francés y obviamente no pude leer los textos en francés, pero me encantó conocer otras escritoras, otros escritores del Caribe. Desde Proyecto Anticanon estamos muy comprometidas con esto y nuestro pasado diplomado buscó contacto con escritoras del Caribe francófono y del Caribe de habla inglesa, y queremos obviamente tener contacto con todo el Caribe. Para eso estudiaré más idiomas, Chiqui, lo tendré muy presente. Entonces estoy feliz con este número, esa posibilidad de entender otras realidades a través del discurso y ver cuáles cosas son muy semejantes y cuáles fenómenos son distintos. Me ha parecido muy interesante y ya quiero aprender francés para leer los textos que no pude leer de esta revista. Gracias.
Muchas gracias, Lauristely. ¿Cualquier otro comentario por parte de cualquiera de los presentes? Para mí ha sido realmente un honor ver la calidad de estos textos y la diversidad de temáticas en torno al Caribe negro y a las experiencias de colonización y experiencias de negritud, cómo se vive la negritud o cómo se acerca cada escritor y cada escritora al tema de la esclavitud o de la negritud en el contexto urbano contemporáneo. Hay tantos temas y tantos diferentes acercamientos. So I'll just say very briefly in English, it's been an honor and it's been a great pleasure to see the quality of the work in these two languages and the diversity of approaches to not just Blackness, but colonialism and the present colonial reality in the Caribbean and the diaspora. And also the different themes that the authors have raised in connection to both Blackness, colonialism, and racism in different contexts and throughout history, because some of the texts go back to the slave trade, go back to slavery in Canada, as we have heard Agnant read from her fiction. We also have a text by René Marin, where from the 50s, and it's an archival text that had never been published before. So there is a depth in the issue that looks at the sort of surface of what's happening in the contemporary Caribbean experience, but also looks back at how this experience has been articulated in the past. So that to me is a richness that I would like to acknowledge from all of your contributions. Okay. Yes, Presidenta, estamos despidiéndonos. Yes, okay. Thank you very much, everyone, for your contributions and for your attendance. Have a great evening.